All right, here's the nice thing about doing a podcast, people. Stuff happens. So we were recording episode 96 the other night, and had a great time doing it. Ate donuts and all that, and then middle of the night, the Suns and the Nets pull off a blockbuster trade, and I wake up the next morning to a text from B Train. When do you sleep, man?
I usually try to sleep about 5 hours. That's about my limit.
Damn.
I figure I'll sleep when I'm dead. How about that?
Look at this! Look at this, man. This face needs beauty rest. But anyways, Suns pull off a blockbuster trade with the Brooklyn Nets, and so what we're going to do here is we're just going to drop our thoughts in as and just add it on, tack it on, consider it a freebie to the podcast. So we'll do this segment, talk about the trade that happened, and then stay tuned for the rest of the podcast. It was pretty damn good. We had a good time the other night doing it, but felt like this was big enough where we wanted to come back together. And well, here we go. B Train, in case somebody was sleeping under a rock and missed it, the Phoenix Suns get Kevin Durant and T.J. Warren. In order to do that, I keep saying New Jersey. Let's just say the Nets get Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, who they packaged up and traded away after he arrived, and they get 4 first-round draft picks from the Suns, as well as a 2028 pick swap option. So that was a steep price to pay. But
Hmm.
paying that price, Matt Ishbia, James Jones landed a generational talent, arguably one of the top 10 to 15 players all time in NBA history. Kevin Durant, likely after the All-Star break, will make his debut in a Phoenix Suns uniform.
Mike, a couple of thoughts. For me, the one thing that jumped out to me was the haul that the Brooklyn Nets got, because this is the Rudy Gobert uh, effect, because he had such
Yeah,
a high demand, and there were so many pieces involved in his trade uh, a few months ago. You knew that for a Kevin Durant, a guy who was a substantially better player than a Rudy Gobert, you knew the asking price would be much higher than it was for Rudy Gobert, and we saw that bear out. And I think for the Phoenix Suns, Mike, I really believe that this was a bigger trade than for Charles Barkley back in 1993. And I know Charles Barkley came in and was MVP and led the Suns to the finals. And I think this is one of those where Kevin Durant is much higher regarded as far as in the
mm-hmm.
basketball annals than Charles Barkley was at the time. Yes, Charles
Yep.
Barkley was a perennial All-Star, but he wasn't a guy that was already an MVP, a guy that already a champion. Kevin Durant is already MVP of the league, already a two-time champion, already a Finals MVP, and for most people, he's arguably one of the top 15 of all time as far as NBA players. So I think there's going to be a certain buzz around Phoenix now because you throw him into a pretty good lineup where you have a Devin Booker, you have a Chris Paul, and you have a DeAndre Ayton, whatever you want to call him. I think it's a big 3.5. I'm not going to say big 4. I'm going to say
Right.
big 3.5 until DeAndre Ayton gets his act together and starts playing like a guy that's worthy of the contract that he got in the offseason. This is big time because I think now the Phoenix Suns become a top 3 team in the Western Conference,
Mm-hmm.
where before this, they were likely on the outside looking into the playoffs. But I think this significantly impacts their outlook on the playoffs that's going to start in about 30 some odd games.
Yeah, no doubt about that. My question is, and I was reading, various breakdowns of this trade, and I thought Rick Bucher at Fox Sports had a nice analysis of this. So I'm kind of paraphrasing what he says. But who does the dirty work on this team, B Train? Now that Mikal Bridges is gone, now that Cam Johnson is gone, and I know Jay Crowder hasn't played this year, but flashback 2 years to the run to the finals against the Bucks. Jay Crowder was a big, big part of that, right? And you've got no doubt. I mean, there is no doubt the talent that you're talking about, the big 3.5, as you called it. And I like the way you put that. Clearly Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul, should he stay healthy, and then whatever DeAndre Ayton chooses to give you on any given night. But in this league, you need to have those role play guys. You need to have those guys that'll come in and play defense. You look at Mikal Bridges, the Iron Man. He never takes a night off. Load management is such a big deal. I want to like this deal, but in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, there's things that are just kind of gnawing at me, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got to figure this out. You've got to figure out the chemistry. Because we talk, even on our podcast, people that were close to this team, that team that ran to the finals, and the team a year ago that had the best record in the regular season, people loved them. They loved the chemistry. They loved how they got together and got along to get it done. And you blew that up with this trade. I don't think there's any questioning that. So really on coach, and his staff to put it together, 30 games, as you pointed out, to figure it out and make that run.
Mike, I think for as much as they love that team, I don't think they love the results of that team. And if you have an
Sure.
opportunity to go win a championship, you got to go for it because those windows don't open very often. And to get a player of Kevin Durant's caliber, he's not always available. Remember, in the offseason, this past offseason, this was flirted with. Everybody kind of had this, and some people kind of dismissed it as, oh, that's just talk. There was real legs to this. There was a real interest on both sides in coming together, and we saw that play out where in the night or in the 12th hour, 11th and a half hour, this thing came to fruition. And I think for a lot of people, it re-energizes their fandom for the Phoenix Suns. And I think now that Sarver's out of the way, and now that a lot of that cloud that surrounded him is pretty much gone, I think you almost get a reset. Yeah, there's only 30 games, but I think in 30 games you can figure this thing out. Teams have been able to figure it out in less time and make runs. And I think for a Kevin Durant, he's going to fit in seamlessly wherever he goes because his game is pretty universal. You can find a
Mm-hmm.
way to integrate Kevin Durant into any offense, and you give a 7-footer an opportunity to use his skills and do things that Kevin Durant can do with the ball, you'll figure it out. And those role players, Mike, the funny thing about when you have an opportunity to win a championship, the role players play their roles a little bit harder now that you are
Mm-hmm.
in this position as opposed to what you were before this trade where things were just kind of mulling along. They were playing decent basketball, but I don't think anybody had realistic expectations of getting to the finals. Now, when you bring in a Kevin Durant, he automatically brings in a certain expectation with him. And I think those players that there may be question marks about as far as what their roles are going to be and who's going to do the dirty work, I think there's going to be a lot more guys at the back of that roster that are going to be willing to do whatever dirty work is necessary to stay a part of this team because they know with the starters that they have and the names that are on the back of those jerseys, they find themselves in a much different situation than they were about 48 hours ago.
No, and I think that's a fair point. And again, this coaching staff has shown that go back 2 years, right? You put it together, and they can put the plan in place to make it work. And that's what these remaining games are for. Once Kevin Durant is healthy and he's able to go, and like I said, reports are that should be shortly after the All-Star break here coming up shortly in the National Basketball Association. The other thing that I wonder about is, and again, this is just, when you package it into the big picture, um, the new owner, and it was clearly the news was out there that the owners and the league fast tracked this approval so that Matt Ishbia and his brother could get in here, take over their controlling interest in this team from Robert Sarver so deals could be done. There was a cap, I believe, at $10 million is what Sarver, with Sarver's suspension, was all James Jones could do. Like his hands were tied because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that is lifted, and now you go all in and then some. Like you watch poker on ESPN where the guy stands up and pushes his chips into the table. Like that's what happened here,
Mm-hmm.
I think, because depending on which side of this equation you are, there's one side that if you're a Suns fan and everything you've described, you love it. On the other side, and again, quoting from Rick Bucher, because this is good and I can't take credit for his work, is that Matt Ishbia has been an NBA owner for less than 24 hours when this article was written, and it feels as if the Brooklyn Nets took full advantage of that fact, the fact that he wanted to make that impression on this fan base that he was here and he meant business, and therefore that price was incredibly steep for Matt Ishbia to pull this deal off.
Mike, we've seen across sports that there have been organizations that are willing to do exactly what Matt Ishbia did. We saw this with the Rams last year. We saw this with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a few years ago, where
Mm-hmm.
you say, hey, you know what? To heck with all those draft picks. We're going to try to win now. And that's what he's tried to do. And if it If they pull it off and they get a championship ring, it will all be worth it. The high price, all of the things that they gave up in order to get this ring, no fan is going to worry about what's going on with Mikal Bridges. They love Mikal and what he brought to the team. But if they get a championship, that will be in the rearview mirror so far down the road that they'll be like, Mikal who? And they will
Yeah,
be on to the celebration and waiting in line at the parade to see the victorious Phoenix Suns as they have the Larry O'Brien roll down,
there you
downtown.
go.
So I understand that it's one of those where yes he paid a lofty price to get a Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant's aren't available very often. And when you have an opportunity to get him, you go get him, and then you worry about the after effects down the road after you were trying to find a place to put that Larry O'Brien in the office.
In your opinion, B Train, what's the window here now, right? Because again, yeah, and I completely agree with your comparisons where you compare this move to what the Rams did, right? Where you
Mm-hmm.
go all in, draft picks be damn, you're going to do what you got to do to win and win now. The Rams were successful in that. Well, what's the
Mm-hmm.
window for the Phoenix Suns? Is it win now, win immediately, like this year? Chris Paul, 37 years old. Kevin Durant, 34 years old, coming off an injury again. Like this is a win. This doesn't have a long window to work. It's got to be a win now, maybe next year, but it's an immediate. It's got to be an immediate payoff, in my opinion.
Oh no, Mike, make no mistake about it. This is win now. This you don't make this move. You don't give up what they give up to wait till next year. If that was the case, they could have waited until next year to make this move because Kevin Durant was going to want to be moved next year had he not been moved this year. So this is all about this season. And I think the fact that they did it right before the trade deadline, now you have an opportunity because again, 30 games is enough of a sample size to figure out
Hmm.
what your roles are going to be as far as am I going to be the primary scorer? Am I going to be the primary ball handler? What Devin Booker's role is going to be. I think these men are going to figure it out because one, they're pros, they're motivated, Mike, and they all understand that Chris Paul ain't getting any younger. Kevin Durant's not getting any
Hmm.
younger. You look at Devin Booker, he's a guy that he's as happy as he can be because now he can be the face of the franchise and not have to carry the entire burden. For Chris Paul, he doesn't have to be the ball carrier or the guy that has to bring the ball up every single time. He doesn't have to play extended minutes. Now you can give it to a superstar like a Kevin Durant and just say, "Hey, big fella, take us home." A guy that can be a closer. Not that you didn't have one on the team because Devin Booker is a closer, but now you have a guy that has been there and done that at the highest level who can do it in his sleep. And that's all he wants to do. So the fact that he wants that smoke as far as the burden of being that guy that everybody looks to bail you out, I think it makes
Hmm.
everybody's job that much easier. And the fact that he had a relationship with Monty Williams already, Mike, I think that was
Hmm.
even more of a plus and why this was fast tracked because I think had there not been that relationship, I don't know if everything would have flowed as smoothly as it did. But the fact that there was already a relationship with Monty and Kevin Durant from their days at Oklahoma City, this just seemed like a no-brainer for the two of them to come together.
Suns after the trade, they fall to Atlanta on Thursday night, and we're recording this on
Nobody
Friday.
worried
The
about
Suns
that.
just no, I'm just giving the context around the All Star break. They beat the Pacers tonight, and they got two more games before the All Star break. They got two home games. They got Sacramento and the Clippers at home. And then the point that we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about here is that they break for the All Star game. Kevin Durant, again, reports say that he should be good to go right about that time. And interesting games on the schedule coming up as they ready for that stretch run that you're talking about, B Train. They got a game at Milwaukee, right? And time to put the goods to test there. Milwaukee comes here later on in March. Got a couple of games left with the Denver Nuggets, so you're going to get an opportunity for maybe some previews, which fans love to see. Got the Sixers on the schedule, got the Clippers on the schedule. So it's going to be fascinating as we get down this stretch run and see these pieces kind of come together and what actually happens with this new look, superstar laden Phoenix Suns team with Kevin Durant now in a Suns uniform.
In the words of the immortal Bart Scott, can't wait. Can't wait to see what this
Can't
team looks
wait.
like. Can't wait to see how they gel on the court. And all guys are going to be motivated to get this thing done. Everybody wants this to happen. The fans are going to be bananas. It's great to be in Phoenix now. You
Yeah.
got the Super Bowl here in a few days, and big shout out to uh, to 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 Patrick Mahomes winning his second MVP. By the way, and that game coming up, and you got the Waste Management Open coming up, and that's already underway, and then you got spring training in a couple weeks. Mike, we're the epicenter of sports right now. I mean, it doesn't get
Ab-
any hotter than Phoenix, Arizona, literally and figuratively.
ab- Absolutely are. And we'll get to that, some of that, anyways, coming up here in the rest of the podcast. Real quickly, before we get out of here, talking NBA trade deadline news, not related to the Phoenix Suns, just interesting because this doesn't happen very often. Apparently, Gary Payton II failed his physical, and that trade that was a big one. It was a four-team trade with the Warriors, the Pistons, the Blazers, and the Hawks. That trade might get blown up, and everybody goes back to square one. Blazers reportedly saying, "No, we thought he was healthy. We thought he was good to go." But Warriors doctor said, "Not so fast, my friend." So, the Warriors were quick to move on from James Wiseman. Just Gary Payton back to the Blazers. This one, obviously, not nearly on the level the one we've been talking about. But just had a lot of interesting layers to it. I don't, I'm sure it's happened, but right at the deadline to have a trade with this many moving parts blow up, it'll be interesting to see how the league handles all this.
Mike, it will be interesting. And also think about the Lakers who were reunited with D'Angelo Russell and they were able to get the Russell Westbrook contract off their books. I think that team was able to make some moves in a positive direction
Yeah,
to kind of help out LeBron James, who became the NBA's leading scorer in history. And that team is going to look a lot different going into the final stretch of
yeah,
the season as well. So the Western Conference
yeah.
is it looks a lot different than it did 48 hours ago. And I think it's fascinating if you're a sports fan to see all the recent happenings and how this is all going to play out for the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And the next big thing, I think, and I use that term kind of loosely, but the next big thing is, these veteran buyouts that are going to happen after these trades settle and see who's available, who's out there. Because I believe the Phoenix Suns with this whole thing, obviously this owner is not shy about spending money. So salary cap and tax be damned, to bring in some veterans that can fill the bill of that tour we're talking about, those guys coming off the bench that can play those roles, that can play some defense, that can give them some time. And this is going to be an attractive place. Guys that are either playing out the string and want to get that ring, or guys that are playing for the next contract and want to make it a good look and have a deep run into the playoffs so they can get some games on tape and impress that next team. So, it'll be interesting to see what this roster looks like in the coming weeks once all that plays out as well.
No doubt, Mike. And a couple names to keep in mind John Wall, who's going to get bought out in Houston. You look at Reggie Jackson out with the Clippers. I think that those are going to be some fascinating guys that where they land can be very, very interesting to see how they can influence one team another as far as their depth and ability to make plays
Mm-hmm.
and create their own shots and those type of things. So, yeah, there's still a lot of moving parts. And Russell Westbrook, will he stay in Utah or will he get bought out? I think he was fascinating in LA, and when he finally accepted the role coming off the bench, he was excelling. Like and yes, that's a big number, $47 million. Where it's going to be prorated because most of the season has happened now. But
Mm-hmm.
man, where will he land? I think those three individuals could definitely change some things as far as predictions and forecast of teams' fate and where they land
Yeah.
and how they're going to fit into their new surroundings.
One other name I'll add to your list is keep an eye on Will Barton at the Wizards. Like, here's a guy I think, he can come in and play some defense. He's like 6'6", 6'7". Doesn't mind playing defense on the wings, which is something that they need to recapture. So, like I said, it'll be fascinating to watch these chips fall into place and watch these rosters kind of take their final shape for that final stretch. That's going to do it for this segment of the podcast. Don't forget, as always, follow us on Twitter at Train and Gross. I got to put a picture of the Bosa donuts out there that you bought the other day. I'm going to do that. I'll put that at Train and Gross. Look for a picture of the donuts because that makes the podcast go around. But like we said at the outset, stick with us. There's more to come on this podcast. We get into the big game coming up on Sunday out of the stadium in Glendale. We talk about the trade deadline before the trade deadline. And then, of course, like you're used to with Train and Grose, you get to hear Pump the Brakes as well as our dad joke. All that and more coming up on Train and Grose.
They have a combined 12 years in the National Football League. They combined for 65 career sacks, 232 tackles, 1 Pro Bowl selection, and 1 Employee of the Month award.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
It's Train and Grose on the All AZ Podcast Network.
Welcome in episode 96 of Train and Grose. B-Train, Bertrand Berry, Mike Grose, Sean Crespin. Thanks for finding us this week.
Yeah.
Take our show on the road.
That's right.
We allowed to say that?
We are, and I appreciate you guys doing so because it was me with the busy schedule that made it difficult, and you guys went above and beyond because not only did you travel across the entire Valley, Grose,
Got to see it.
B-Train came through with the Bosa Donuts, which you guys hear us talk about an awful lot on this show, but it wasn't just regular apple fritters, and this box is going to do it no justice because it's already half eaten. But my man came through, and Grose, you tell us where to put the camera because I can't see it. But
right there, I can see it.
You can see right there?
Yeah, tilt it up.
Apple
Look at that.
fritters, red velvet,
and some blueberry.
and blueberry.
Well, we are at
Bosa Donuts.
We are at the Talking Stick Resort Studio.
Yeah.
At Bellbank Park.
Correct.
Did I get that right?
You got it 100%
That's a
correct.
mouthful for me.
Absolutely.
But we are happy to be here. Wonderful studio. Beautiful setup here, Sean Crespin.
Thank you, sir.
And we're going to do this before I forget. Then we'll get into that.
Okay.
Episode 96,
Okay.
Cortez Kennedy.
Yes.
I'm with it.
The late, great Cortez Kennedy.
No doubt.
Passed away at the age of 48.
Mike, I've had 7 teammates pass in my career. Only one made it to 40.
Man.
A bunch of them didn't even make it to 30, which is really sad.
Yeah.
And so anytime that you have late greats that are gone too soon, it always puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
We're people first. You think about the man, the myth, the legend, and the orb behind these great athletes and great players. But you also have to remember that nobody gets out of this thing unscathed. And we're all human. We all go the same way.
Well, and, obviously, as a fan, remember the greatness of Cortez Kennedy on the field. But the cool thing, because I always look it up just to make sure I got it right, and I usually get it right. Sometimes I mess up, but I usually get it right. And the one picture that I saw of Cortez Kennedy with exactly what you were just talking about, B-Train, is the picture of him hugging his Hall of Fame bust.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got to be alive to experience that because I always, and it's usually when you hear about like veterans committees or things like that where they put guys in that have already passed and you're like, man, you're putting him in now. I mean, I suppose it's great for the family.
Yep.
But if he was good enough to be in the Hall of Fame right now,
Honor him while he's still
wouldn't it be
breathing.
nice to let him be alive and
Give him his
experience that,
flowers.
right?
Give me my flowers. If you guys feel a certain way about me, give me my flowers before my untimely
So
death.
that picture kind of caught my eye, touched me a little bit.
No doubt.
Thinking about Cortez Kennedy. So episode 96, shout out to the great Seattle Seahawk and Miami Hurricane.
Rest in peace, brother.
All right. We got to do it.
gotta do
B-Train
it, man.
comes through. And regular listeners to this show, people that follow us on Twitter at Train and Grose, we will put on Twitter pictures of Bosa Donuts when we have it, or
Which is
whatever's in
frequently.
that box
Yes.
from Bosa Donuts.
Yeah, because
which I
sometimes
already
we
took-
never know what it is.
Well, I took a pic. Well, and this is interesting, and you're going to tell this story in a minute. But I've bought in apple fritters previous. We're good. We share the wealth.
Correct.
But I've bought in apple fritters, and there's one particular Bosa Donuts where I go in and I say I'll take some apple fritters because that's the food of choice for Train and Grose, and then she'll drop in some like donut holes or some extras. Maybe she likes me, or maybe she's just trying to get rid of inventory at the end of the day. But either way,
We'll take
it's always nice to have a little surprise on the inside.
No doubt about it.
A little appetizer for your apple fritter.
That's right.
Man, but you walk into Bosa Donuts and you lose all semblance of self-control.
Man, I want to say this for all the listeners out there, and I know you guys are going to feel me on this. I often feel like when I go into a Bosa Donuts, I feel like I got to go in there with the same mindset that I do when I go to Target.
Yeah.
You have to have a game plan. You cannot go into these places without a game plan because you can find yourself in a dark, dark spot.
Yes.
And doing things that you thought you would never do. Target is, to me, if I go into Target without a game plan, I already know it's $2.50 in the hole. I already know. Bosa Donuts, if I go in without a game plan, it's a dozen without even blinking.
What was it going to take for you to walk up to the counter at Bosa Donuts and simply say 6 apple fritters, please, and slide your money on the counter and then turn around? Like, you got to have that.
So what happened was I went in and I had the mindset. I was like, okay, just give me the 6 apple fritters and let me be out. Because I told her to get the small box. This is not the dozen box. So I had the game plan.
He did.
To go in and just get the half dozen.
That's the right first couple steps.
Right?
Right, yep.
But the apple fritters were right next to the red velvets and the blueberries. I couldn't help myself. I was like, are you kidding me? I didn't know they did the red velvet.
You know, I'm picturing, you guys have seen Rush Hour 2 when Chris Tucker and the doors open up and they're at the massage parlor and he's like,
Don't jump in front of the buffet line.
Yeah.
The black man in the buffet line.
Let me get one of them. Oh, one of them too. One of them too.
Yeah. And you got to come. Oh yeah.
That's what I picture right now. B-Train at Bosa Donut.
That's like that Mike Tyson line. Everybody's got a plan.
Yeah. You know that emoji where it's got like the 2 hearts for the eyes? I looked at it and I was like, put them in there. Put them in there. I was mad. You know, I was like, damn it. Put them in there. I don't care.
She's like, is everything all right, sir? Nah, just put them in the box.
Just put them in there. Don't say nothing. You got me.
What do I owe you?
Right. And you don't even worry about it. Like when you get good stuff like that, the price don't even matter.
It's quality, man. And there are, like, they are on the pay. They should be paying us right now for this.
Seriously.
But it's true. There are Bosa Donuts in every corner of the valley. Like, you go to the far west side up by Sun City, Bosa Donuts.
Yes.
Central Phoenix, where I shop, Bosa Donuts. East Valley, where you are, Bosa Donuts. You could go in and buy exactly what you bought wherever you were in Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
And go to the one in Central Phoenix.
That's right.
Or the one
thing.
in Sun City, and it's going to be the same.
Higley Road. That's my hometown. That's my home.
That's your home base?
Yeah, it's my home.
I mean, so there's one on Higley, and then there's one on Val Vista.
Yeah.
I mean, to take your pick, like right past
Higley
Val
and
Vista
Williamsfield.
and Elliott. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We got to edit this out. We're going to tell them what we're going to do.
Clip it
I don't
and
even
send
care.
it to them.
Clip it and send it to them. Say, hey, remember you and I were on the radio? Darnell Dockett was trying to get a contract.
Pay the man.
And they were stringing it along.
Hashtag pay the man.
Hashtag pay. Pay 9-0, I think is what.
Oh, yeah. Pay 9-0.
Pay
yeah.
9-0.
Pay 9-0.
Well, we'll send that to Bosa Donuts and say,
yeah.
Listen to this.
Donuts.
Right. On the other side. No, I'm kidding. Full segment.
But, I mean, really, like, between Bosa Donuts and Target, they are two of the most guilty pleasure places you'll ever go.
Everybody's got a few items that gets them every time. So you said if you go in without a game plan, it's going to be $2.50 regardless in Target.
Absolutely.
What are some of the items that get you every time?
Candles, trail
I was going to guess the candles because we see that all the time.
We see the candles all the time.
And the trail mix. We see the trail mix at train station.
Candles, trail mix.
Yeah.
Toiletries that you didn't think you needed.
You got to get them.
But you got to get them just because you're there.
So you didn't think you need them, but you bought them, so that didn't mean you needed them. You wanted them.
But I know a lot of times you don't know if you're out or not at the house, so you say, I might as well, since I'm here, I'm going to give me those.
And see, I have the double responsibility because, remember, I take showers at my building.
Oh, that's right.
That's true.
So I don't know if I'm out either way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always got to make sure you're clean. You know, you got you got to maintain, the hygiene. You know, you can't just be half-stepping on the hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have too much deodorant, is that ever a bad thing?
Never a bad thing.
Too much toothpaste, is that a bad thing?
Go back to the beginning of the whole COVID thing, pandemic, too much toilet paper?
Oh, gosh.
Never a bad thing.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
I still can't believe that was a chapter in our lives. People fighting over toilet paper.
Well,
was a legitimate chapter in our lives.
But my thing was, how much do people think they were going to eat? You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, in order to use that toilet paper, like
yeah, exactly.
Or the flip side, because I used to do investments. The flip side is people are running the price up, kind of like
of course.
And now everybody's stockpiled, so they're not. Then I'm sure like Charmin and those companies are like, well, why aren't we selling this stuff?
Yeah.
So when we were here's a story. We were at ASU. COVID was kind of
full effect
around, and they had a hand sanitizer bottle sitting on the scores table. And Kyle Dodd, the color analyst, I'm throwing him under the bus here completely, jokingly grabbed it and goes, I got 4 kids. I could use this. A week later, that damn thing was probably worth $150 because it was the large one and you couldn't find it anywhere. And he's like, man, I've walked out with gold. But what a weird chapter in our lives.
Weird.
But, Target is that store. And I know there's a lot of people out there that feel me.
I think everybody does.
Yeah, because it again, you can drop $250 and not even blink.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like you've accomplished something, but you really hadn't done anything but overspend.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
when you had to have that extra storage bin, you didn't know if you needed.
Of course.
I do that.
Or the towels.
The towels
the
and
bath towels.
The towels get me all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
How many towels you got in your house?
Well, but everyone, you need to freshen those up. I mean, you only wash
What
them.
is the life cycle of a towel?
You can only wash them so many times, and then all of a sudden you start to realize, hey, this ain't as fresh as it used to be.
A bath towel a year. Give me a full solid year between washing, drying off, and being stuck at the bottom of a pile of dirty clothes.
12 months.
You get about 12 months.
Mm-hmm. You know what else gives me a Target? They've got these blankets that they're really nice and
The
soft.
weighted ones?
Yes.
The weighted blankets. Man.
Yes.
I got one.
I get them for me, and I get them for the dogs too.
Yeah.
Throw it on the dog bed, so it's nice.
Oh,
and
the
soft
dogs
for 'em.
love them.
Yeah,
They love them.
but they get me all the time. Damn you, Target. Anyway,
This segment brought to you by Bosa Donuts and Target.
And Target, yeah. I mean,
100%.
Is there anything else going on that we're supposed to be talking about?
100%. I looked it up. I guess we should talk about there's this thing going on called Super Bowl LVII. Super Bowl
57.
57.
Which was my first number in the NFL, by the way. When I was
I don't think I knew that.
When I
I've
was
seen
drafted
pictures
by
of
the
that.
Colts,
Yeah.
Because you wore 13 at Notre Dame.
60 and 13.
16, then 13.
60,
6-0, then 13.
And 13.
And then
the 57.
You get to the Colts, and you couldn't wear 13.
Linebackers had to have 50.
Yeah.
Everything was regulated in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then I think all hell broke loose by 2014, 2015. Yeah.
They're trying to have you on the offensive line. What are they doing? What was
Chris,
60?
Shout out to Chris Matlock. Chris Matlock always wanted to send messages to the freshmen, no matter what the position, and he always wanted to let you know that you are a freshman and you're going to wear this number. And I was like, all right, I'm going to make it hot, though. He's like, all right, whatever.
Whatever, freshman.
Yeah. Wound up starting, finished number 2 in the country. I was like, I told you I was going to make it hot.
Take that.
Take that with you.
Now give me number 13.
Now give me number 13 because, this number sucks. I look like a filled donut in that thing, man.
Like a Bosa donut.
Yeah, I look like the filled one, like filled with cream.
Sunday afternoon, the stadium in Glendale, the Chiefs, the Eagles, they're all in town. The fans are in town. It's crazy traffic in town.
Yeah.
With the golf tournament and the big game at the stadium.
Are you going to partake in anything? Are you going to go to any parties?
I'm working Sunday.
I mean, during
But
the week.
leading up to it, I mean, there's a lot going on.
No, I'm not doing.
You're not doing
Julia,
anything?
my daughter's going downtown to the Footprint Center. They got some. I think Friday night she's going down.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with the. I'm going to sound like that old guy. I don't want to deal with the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. You look at what's going on, and all these things like going to Gronk's beach party. Like no, I'm just not for me.
You know what's weird? And I've been lucky enough. I'm not complaining at all, but I've been lucky enough to travel to cover Super Bowl many times.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, when it's here, I have zero desire to partake in any of those parties you guys are talking about. But then when you're out and you're traveling to it, you almost feel like you want to be involved
You're in
in
that
everything.
mindset.
It's a completely
It's
different
like you're
mindset.
on vacation.
Yeah, here when it's here in our backyard,
work.
it is. I
Feels
want
like work.
nothing to do with it. I don't want to go to Scottsdale to the golf tournament. I have no interest
Oh
in
my
going
God.
west.
Well, we all know that because when we were doing the radio show, and you for many, many years doing the radio show, we used to do our radio show from the golf tournament in Scottsdale.
And all the people that
the
would be
people
coming
and
in.
the parking and the traffic.
Yeah.
And
I did a morning show out there where they opened up the expo tent early for us, and we
Brutal.
froze our what off
Wow.
out there, and then you'd
'Cause it's
see
cold in
this
the morning
mad the people that mad rush that place. They line up. I think it's like 6 a.m. and they just bum rush the expo tent and haul it to whatever hole they want to get to. It's crazy. People tripping
in,
over each
people
other.
out, man. It's
wild.
It's amazing.
What's the over-under in attendance on Saturday? 25,000? 50,000?
Oh no, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I'm trying to think
Hundreds
what
of
it's been.
thousands on Saturday
Oh yeah.
in one place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Manuch tells a great story. I was living it with Manuch, but he tells our good friend Dan Manucci, the quarterback whisperer. We were doing the afternoon show out there one day, and the show went till 6 o'clock. But this time of year, it gets dark, so people are leaving the golf course around 4:30, 5 o'clock. And there was this group of people that were leaving, 2 men, 2 women, clearly had been enjoying themselves at the tournament, imbibing, and they were coming out, and you could just tell. You could see them coming.
Yeah, it was a vibe.
And the one guy goes, "Hey, they're doing a radio show over there," and so they stumble their way over to us. I'm talking about whatever Manuch and I are talking about at the time, football, I'm sure, something like that.
Right.
And you're sitting there staring out. You see the people coming, and this woman lifts her shirt and flashes us.
Wow.
Mid show, like she just, boo, she flashed, laughed, walked away. And Manuch tells the story, and he's like, "You didn't skip a beat.
Yeah.
You did not stop whatever you were talking about."
I mean,
was like,
Mike,
you're a professional, man.
It was the best thing you had seen all day.
Oh man, man.
I couldn't help it.
I guess that's the end of the pod. We always end on
ladies and
that.
gentlemen.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time. I'm out of here.
Man.
That feels like we only been doing this for about 20 minutes.
But the thing about this is when I look at this game, the thing that intrigues me about the game, like I don't want to go out in public either. I'm with you. I don't want to partake. You guys, we're all grumpy old men to some degree. But the thing that intrigues me about the game is there's so many underlying stories.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many back page stories. You've got brothers for the first time. You've got Andy Reid against his former team.
Yep.
You've got 2 black quarterbacks for the first time in NFL history playing for a Super Bowl. There's so many different storylines that you can run with. You've got 2 quarterbacks with contrasting styles. One guy is a gunslinger. He's one of those throwback Brett Favre type of guys, take chances.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the cool, calm, and collected, button-up Jalen Hurts, who it does everything unconventional, and still they arrive at the same point. I think it's fascinating to see these 2 different styles collide here for all the marbles, and I think we talked about this last week, but I just got to say, if you're Lamar Jackson, you are rooting like crazy.
Yeah.
Like crazy for Jalen Hurts.
Big
Because if this style of play gets to a championship, his value is going to go through the roof.
Because that's the one knock they have right now on a Lamar Jackson is that no quote unquote running quarterback who is basically 50-50 in terms of taking off with his legs or throwing the football has ever won a title.
Mm-hmm.
You can point to some guys who can move. Patrick Mahomes can do it, but does a lot.
He wants to throw the ball
mostly from behind the line of scrimmage. The Steve Youngs of the world have done it. A guy that can run the football, but nobody who's been considered a true dual threat running the football as much as Hurts does it or Lamar Jackson has ever won a title. That's the one knock on his style of play. You're 100% right.
You're 100% right, but I not disagree with you, but what the hell are the Ravens thinking anyways? Like you need Jalen.
Oh, they're nuts.
No, but I'm saying you need Jalen Hurts to win a Super Bowl to prove how valuable Lamar Jackson is to you?
But Lamar Jackson's camp going to the
I
negotiating table needs it.
I get that because the Ravens have been so pig-headed about this. We talked about this going into the last season.
Yeah.
That there's no reason it ever should have got to this point.
Well, Mike, it's an ideal, and I think there's a lot of outside pressure outside of Baltimore for the Ravens owner to hold the line. Because you're talking – everybody knows what this is about. This is about Deshaun Watson's contract.
Absolutely.
This is about a fully guaranteed number that's way out there that nobody really wants to commit that much to fully.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are going to be, 230. That's not a number that's going to wow you because we see Patrick Mahomes. I think he's about double that.
He is.
Yeah.
And so that's not the key. The key is fully guaranteed 230 plus because I look at Lamar Jackson. There's nothing about his game and nothing about his personal life that says he shouldn't get whatever Deshaun Watson got plus some because he's a better quarterback. He's a more accomplished quarterback. He's done more in the NFL than Deshaun Watson.
100%.
There's nothing to really talk about. The only sticking point is fully guaranteed. And we saw this with Kirk Cousins, a guy that was able to get that because of his situation being a 4th-round pick and then hitting to be a restricted free agent and all that kind of stuff and being franchise tagged for 2 years and then finally hitting and betting on himself. I just look at him and say, why would you play a game with this guy? You've built your entire system. You built your entire organization around Lamar Jackson, and why would you play chicken
That's what I don't
with
understand.
this guy?
They're talking about already, and I know at this point it's all back and forth, right? Everybody's trying to get leverage on everybody.
Yeah.
But they're talking about already about like, oh, what if we, you just use the tag on him again next year? Like, at some point,
You don't want to do that.
At some point, you got to take care of this man.
You don't want to.
You got to take care of this man at some point. Going back to the game, number one versus number one, I think is
It's fascinating.
It's
Mike.
fascinating because going back and we won't rehash it in a negative way the way Sean did last time, but when you guys went as a number 4 seed, not having, that was it was interesting. It was like a weird twist, but to have the two best teams, and I think when you take a step back and look at it, and Sean uses a phrase, if you tell the story about whatever you're trying to say, if you tell the story about 2023, right?
Or 2022.
2022 season into 2020.
Right.
For the most part, you look at that and say, you know what? In retrospect, like it changed week to week.
It was a collision course.
These two teams were on a collision course.
That's right.
Right? And you the fans are going to get what they want. Las Vegas says that's what they want because this thing opened up. Kansas City I think it opened up as a 2-point favorite, immediately flipped to Philadelphia, and now it's back to Kansas City at 1 or 1.5. And, take that for whatever it's worth because it doesn't matter once they hit the field, but just an interest in where the fans see this. Like it hasn't deviated, one way or another, or they didn't bring it in at +6 or +7 like if it would have been a 4-1 matchup or something like that. So you look at this, and this is it. The two best are getting ready to do their thing Sunday.
And I think, take your fandom away from
I can do it when we're on the air.
Fan.
Yeah.
When you start looking at this game, it's hard to see a scenario where you don't feel good about whoever wins. Whichever team wins this Super Bowl, you can say some good things about either team. And I know, obviously, with being a Raider fan, there's very little good to say about the Kansas City. But as just a fan of the game, you can appreciate what we're seeing from Patrick Mahomes, where he is in this space. I'm going to say this again, and because I still can't believe this every time I say this. Patrick Mahomes has been a starter in the NFL for 5 seasons. He has never, I repeat, never failed to reach the AFC Championship game, nor has he failed to host it. The AFC Championship game. When you think about the start of a career, even more than Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady had the 2 and 3 rings in 4 years. That's impressive. But my gosh, to host 5 straight and to be an MVP, a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP along the way, I don't know what else we can say about Patrick Mahomes. I think for him, if he gets this one, he gets to put himself in a much different category of all-time greats. If he were to retire today, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
He's a Hall of Famer, 100%.
Already.
100%.
In 5 years.
Yeah. I don't know how you would keep him out.
Because he's going to be MVP this year. He's going to be the MVP.
He should be. Yep, he should be MVP. And you're right.
Over Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Because he missed the game.
Missed the games. Yep.
But so that's 2 MVPs, 3 trips to the Super Bowl. You already got a win, and you've got a Super Bowl MVP to your credit.
Right. And I think he gets it over Jalen Hurts, not only because Jalen missed some games, but on top of that, do you remember what the narrative was to start the year?
What are you going to do without Tyreek Hill?
Well, no Tyreek Hill. This team's taking a step back. Those Chargers, those Raiders, those Broncos. Oh, look what they're doing. No, they just went out and got the 1 seed.
They got better
and punched their ticket to the. I agree. They got better. I agree.
Mahomes got better.
He did.
That's the scary part. He had to get better because now you didn't have that home run shot all the way down the field. If all else fell, you just sit back and chuck it as far as you can, and the cheetah's going to catch it. Now he had to find Travis Kelce, and he had to make synergy with some newly acquired talent, some rookies out of the backfield, some guys that came from other teams, Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, there's so many different guys. This has been that referendum on when a guy has to step his game up, can he do it? And Patrick not only did it, he did it in style.
And they do it as a cohesive unit, the coach, the player, and the front office. You talk about you lose due to free agency. I was thinking about, and we were talking about this elsewhere, when you think about guys that have come in, a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, like
rookie.
You found a guy from Rutgers of all places, and somebody on the radio said or TV said something like when he runs with the ball, he's running like that's the last chance he's ever going to get. He's running like a guy from Rutgers who knows that you're not from Alabama, you're not from USC, but man, look at what he gives to that offense. A rookie, like 6th or 7th round rookie.
They have a ton. Here's what's disappointing if you're somebody hoping your team can get over the Kansas City Chiefs hump. On both sides of the ball, they have a ton of young talent. A ton of young talent. That's having to play. That's having to play.
And contributing.
Had to play last week in the AFC Championship game and make an impact, and they did. Defensive backs, wide receivers, running back. It's ridiculous.
Well, and it's important from obviously what you see on the field, but you as a if you're going to maintain as a franchise in this current structure, you've got to be able to bring in young talent that can play because they're cheaper. You got to do that because you can't have a bunch of highly paid veterans and make up your 53-man roster. You just can't.
Mike, I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to take it to the next level. This is also a referendum on drafting to fit your system.
Absolutely.
Not only do you find talent, but you find talent that fits your system. Remember, when Tyreek Hill was drafted, nobody knew who the hell Tyreek Hill was. He was a guy that just could run really fast. Nobody knew that he would turn into the cheetah and become this guy, but the way that his skill set fit Andy Reid's system and what they needed from those particular players and how they've drafted over the course of Patrick Mahomes' first 5 years, they've drafted guys that fit their skill set. It wasn't necessarily the best player, but it was guys that fit what they wanted them to do. Sure. And I think for a lot of teams around the NFL, they could take a page from Andy Reid and the front office of the Kansas City Chiefs and don't just get a name, get a guy that actually fits your system and is going to allow him to be in position to go out there and be very successful throughout the course of his career.
And if we're talking about things maybe you underappreciate about the Kansas City Chiefs at times, and you're talking about Coach Reid, their red zone package offensively is like something I've never seen before.
It's impossible to stop.
There's so many moving parts. They give you so much eye candy, so much motion, this, that, and the other.
But it's one guy.
And it's unbelievable.
Improvisation that you see from that one guy.
It's unbelievable.
But it's a microcosm, to your point, in the red zone.
It's the speed and the tight end and the quarterback's ability to do what you're talking about.
To do whatever he wants.
It allows him to be the mad scientist and draw up all kinds of crazy stuff that other teams can't seem to pull off. They try to, but they can't seem to pull off. Their red zone package, stupid.
But just think about this, though. Think about the major players on the Kansas City Chiefs offense and defense. You got Patrick Mahomes. Was Patrick Mahomes considered the top quarterback in that draft?
No.
No.
I mean, hell, the 49ers traded up in that draft and took Mitch Trubisky. Sorry.
Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was a guy that was kicked out of Cincinnati. His brother had to go and fight for him, a guy that was a converted quarterback. Now, you talk about Travis Kelce, he's one of the best players in all of football.
All of football.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You think about on the defensive side. You think about Jones. Think about Chris Jones. Chris Jones wasn't a name coming out of college. I mean, obviously he could play and he had some talent, but you didn't think of him as a can't-miss guy and a guy that you had to have as a top 5 pick. He wasn't that guy, but he fit what they wanted to do. And once a guy is able to blossom and flourish in a system that's made for his skill set, that's when you get that true magic. So I just think for a lot of teams around the NFL, don't necessarily go for the big-name guys from the big-name schools. Find the guys that actually fit what you're trying to get done and let them go out there and do their thing.
Well, and you again, you've got a coach, you got the players, and you got a front office. Their general manager's he's only worked at, stop me if you've heard this before, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles.
How about that?
Like he started as an intern with the Eagles. Now he's a general manager. And he's got that relationship with the head coach, to your point, the ability to go out and find players, but find players that fit what they want to do, fit their system. And
That's right.
I don't mean to make it sound like it's a system thing, but fits what they're trying to do.
That's right.
And that shows where you've got to have, from the top down, you've got to be in sync with each other. You talk about teamwork and chemistry on the field, clearly important, but it's more than that.
Absolutely.
It's more than that.
Absolutely. It starts from the top, and it just trickles all the way down.
Except for Andy Reid's airplane commercial with the mustache.
Wow. Yeah.
Real quickly before we drop out of here, how cool is Mrs. Kelsey bringing in the Tupperware chocolate chip cookies to her boys?
Did you hear her on the podcast though?
No.
Talking about how she had hoped Travis, because Travis is the younger, Jason is the older brother, but Travis is the younger brother. She said she had hoped that he was a girl, but she said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. She's like, well, I did kind of get a girl because he's a fashionista. He's kind of a diva, so I got a girl in respect because he's a guy that he kind of behaves like a girl at times as far as his dress and all that type of stuff. And so I know now where Travis gets his personality from.
Yeah.
It is 100% mom.
You can tell.
There's no doubt about it.
She's not afraid of this moment.
She is living her best life right now.
What is it? She's not a reluctant celebrity.
No, she is living her best life. It good for them. Good for the Kelsey family, and good for Jason to stick up for his brother way back when. Who knew that it would turn out as beautifully as it has? But that's what brothers do for each other.
Absolutely. All right, we'll step aside here on the other side after we eat some more donuts. We're going to get into the NBA. Suns have a new owner, trade deadline upon us. Big trades already happened. That's coming up on Train and Gross.
Yeah.
Train and Gross.
Welcome back to Train and Gross. We're on the road this week. We're at the Talking Stick Resort Studio.
It's nice.
What city are we in?
This is technically Mesa.
This is Mesa?
Yeah.
Seems a lot further than Mesa.
Damn near Green Creek, though.
It is, and it's damn near Gilbert. Like on the other side of the airport, that's just west of us, is where I live.
It's like one street.
and that's Gilbert.
It's like
and
a
then this is Mesa.
three-pronged street.
Queen Creek's right here.
Yeah.
It's just all over the place.
It's a home game for you.
It is 5 minutes from my house.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Gotta love it.
NBA.
Man.
All places we could go, all over the place we could go with coming up. We got the trade deadline coming up.
All-Star game coming up.
All-Star game coming up. Phoenix Suns have a new owner. That's a done deal. I think we start what we were talking about during the break.
Yeah.
Last night, we're recording this on Wednesday.
February 8th.
So February 7th, LeBron James passed the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to become the all-time leading scorer in the National Basketball Association. And whatever else you think about LeBron, people have opinions.
Yeah.
And I get sports talk radio, and we're going to do this a little bit, but, the story last night, immediately, well, who's the greatest? Like, we can stop with that. Let the man have his moment.
Have his moment.
Because when you look at what it means to be the all-time leading scorer in this league, and if you look at his numbers, he's going to leave the league as the all-time
over
leader.
40,000.
Well, and the leader in assists as well, right?
Possibly,
so he will walk away with both of those. So let the man have his night.
Yeah.
You look at what it means. He's a hell of a player. Coupled with a guy who's stayed relatively healthy, so longevity's part of it.
Yes.
He's won championships.
20 years.
He's won championships.
Never quit. Never stopped playing.
He plays hard every night.
Right, but I mean, he never took time off.
I got you. Never took a break, but
Yeah.
you've never questioned his effort.
No, never.
And then the other thing that people get hung up on, in with the NBA, which I think is unfair, but you don't hear about LeBron, like, unless he wants you to. Like, he's not. There's no issues. There's no problem. There's no trouble.
No.
Like, you look at him as a family, his kids. Like, it.
Akron.
You should aspire to be
Absolutely. LeBron James.
LeBron James.
Mike, he's one of the few athletes that actually exceeded the expectations.
Yeah.
A guy that was being telecast in high school, his games, and nicknamed the Chosen One, King James.
Yeah.
And he exceeded all of that, Mike.
Yeah.
I think you have to tip your cap to a guy like that, and somehow maintained his credibility as a man. Didn't put himself in compromising situations at all. There have been a few things that he may have said or tweeted that may have ruffled some feathers, but that's just subjective. That's just people's opinion.
Yeah.
And, opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody got one. Most of the time they stink. So I just look at it and I say, for LeBron, he has played his career as beautifully as any professional athlete that I can remember in recent history.
No, I can't disagree with that. I've never been a fan of a team that he's been on. Not that I don't like LeBron, but it's just, rooting interest, whatever.
Yep.
But you have to sit back and appreciate. You have to appreciate what he's done.
Yes.
And, at the end of this, I mean, you play for records, you play for championships.
Correct.
The numbers are, you can't dispute it. I mean, and, I thought the Lakers, for the most part, and we got a little asterisk to that. Kareem was there.
Yeah.
It was a nice moment.
Magic was there.
They stopped it with, 7 seconds left to go in the
Commissioner
third.
was there, yeah.
Commissioner was there. It was a nice moment, celebration.
Yep.
And everybody seemed to enjoy themselves.
Except for one Anthony Davis. But, that's a story for another day. And I think, Mike, when I see that footage, it's one thing to try to get a rest.
Yeah.
Because I know that he had just dived for a ball and maybe he was a little nicked or whatever. But
still,
you stand up for that one. Mike, get your ass up.
Get your
ass up. No, that's how you say it, because that doesn't happen every day. Mike, it had been 38 years since you had seen a new scoring champion in the NBA. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar held that record for 38 years.
Incredible.
Oh, by the way, he set that record 7 months before LeBron James was born. And here comes LeBron James 1,400 games later, or 1,400, yeah, and a guy that has done everything that has been asked of him to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's done it the right way. He's been smart with his money. He's been philanthropic with his money. He's been good with his brand. There's nothing that you can say bad about his brand. His family is all well intact. His mom is right there. Wife is right there. 3 kids are there. He's a family guy. He's always there at his son's games when he can be. Mike, you can't really point to anything, but even with that, I still got to say MJ is still the best to me.
Yeah, and I mean that's what makes sports great, because you can have those conversations.
It's a healthy debate.
It's a healthy debate. But my point was the worldwide leader had to do that last night. Like
Yeah.
for at least a night, let it be his night.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I wasn't sure if he was going to do it last night. I thought maybe he would wait till Milwaukee, because they play Milwaukee. And if you do remember, once upon a time,
Lou Alcindor,
a la Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks, won a championship there with the Big O. So it would have been some synergy in that respect. And Giannis was there, to do that against Giannis Antetokounmpo, a guy that is basically coming for his crown.
the heir apparent.
I mean, and he's coming with a full head of steam, kind of like how LeBron did it in his time, setting his name forth. But I look at last night, and it was almost the perfect night. But if you're the Lakers, come on, man. You got to give your boy more effort than what you gave him.
Lose to Oklahoma City during that whole thing.
I mean, Oklahoma City is a better team. But, Mike, they had guys out. That was not a full team for Oklahoma City. And it was defense optional.
Yeah.
The amount of layups and just the Olay, just the VIP service to the rim that both teams were giving each other. I mean, there was no hesitation. There was no type of resistance towards the rim.
There was 200 points scored in the first 3 quarters. 200 points scored in the first 3 quarters of that game.
I mean,
wild.
I love points, and I love to see the ball go in the hole, but when you see it go in looking like a Friday practice, or you're doing 3-on-2 drills, it did lose a little something. And LeBron did everything that he was supposed to do, because he came out with that killer mentality. He wanted to go and get it. And, Mike, he ran out of gas, and his boys couldn't help him.
Didn't help him. Interesting. You talk about all-time leading scorer in the NBA. That record was broken last night. That stood for
38 years.
38 years. The NCAA all-time scoring record is probably going to be broken this year.
Wow.
Remember Mike Davis that coached Indiana?
Yeah.
His kid. He coaches his kid at Detroit now.
Okay.
And he's about ready to break Pistol Pete Maravich's all-time scoring record.
Wow.
So two records like that that stood a long time likely go down in the same season.
Isn't it interesting when we talk about all-time greats and how they're celebrated? Think about this. Think about the logos for these two sports. Talk about a contrast in style. The NFL has a shield.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA has a player. So when you start looking at who gets the emphasis, the NBA is always about the individual.
Mm-hmm.
The LeBron James, the Michael Jordan, the Magic Johnson, Bird and Johnson. And everybody was kind of worried who was going to carry the torch. Kobe and Shaq for a while, and the bad boys kind of interrupted that for a little bit, and then Detroit came back in 2004 and kind of interrupted it yet again. Yeah. But then you've seen since 2003, it's been LeBron James's show for the most part. He's either he's either won 4 or he's lost 6. And all along the way, you've known that he's been a major player in the playoffs and who was going to win a title for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
He's had a direct hand in who was going to have that opportunity. And I don't think there's any one person in the NFL that you can look at and say that guy was the difference for 10 to 15 years. You could say Brady to an extent, but everybody knows that it was a collective team. Yeah. It was the shield. It
has to be. Yeah.
It was the we instead of me.
Yep.
And you have two different styles, but I think they both work in the American public.
No, I think you're right, and you look at what the NBA is and how it's become so popular, and they did that by celebrating those individual superstars.
Correct. That's correct.
You just go all the way back to Magic and Larry doing McDonald's commercial, whatever, all the way through. Right? They figured that out that was going to be the way that they would all prosper. They would all make money.
Yeah,
right.
Started in 1979 in their
way
college championship.
Back when, right?
Championship
Unlike
game.
The NFL, to your point, they don't celebrate individual players the way they do. Sometimes the people, they got the helmet and it's harder, but they just
they
for whatever
could if they
it's,
wanted
it's
to.
different.
If they
the
wanted
way
to,
they do
could.
it, right?
Yes.
And that's absolutely right. All right, locally, big news in town. Robert Sarver is officially. We knew he was going, but he's officially out. The new owner was introduced at a press conference today, and understand that the NBA did him a little solid. Wanted to fast track this thing so he could get in and get some deals hopefully done before the trade deadline, which, again, we're recording this on the 8th. The trade deadline is tomorrow afternoon, Phoenix time.
Yep.
But Matt Ishbia, how does he say it? Ishbia?
Close enough.
Ishbia.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
Former Michigan State Spartan, played for Tom Izzo, Ishbia, all of that. We'll just get it out.
Izzo.
But, said all the right things, did all the right things, backtracked from hiring Isaiah Thomas. But he is announced, and he's in and presumably hunkered in with James Jones, trying to figure out what they got to do between now and tomorrow afternoon, at the very least, to get rid of Jay Crowder, but hopefully do a few more things to right the ship before the postseason starts.
And I think it was good to see Devin Booker back out on the court last night, and for him to have the impact that he did last night. I mean, the Suns are better when they're healthy. And the one thing that we haven't seen this team in the last 2 years, really, since they got to the finals, they haven't been a healthy unit. And they have the same style of coach. I don't think Monty has changed his style at all, but I don't think he's had the same weapons available to him on a regular basis.
No doubt. And I heard this on talk radio coming in, that this lineup, the starting lineup, their preferred starting lineup, they had it for 6 games at the start of the season before the injury started.
Yeah.
And so you look at early November to early February till you get that starting lineup back.
Jeez, that's crazy.
And credit to everybody else to, kind of a little bit of a rough spot where they dipped a little bit, but they held it together, went 8-2 in their last 10, awaiting the return of Devin Booker. And, here you are. I mean, you've got a team that's right there in the thick of it. And I've maintained, and I know we've talked about this, when you think about where this team literally and figuratively broke down a year ago, it was late in the season where your older guys, Chris Paul, got tired. And so you look at where they were a couple weeks ago. You don't want any part of that play-in round if you're the Suns. You need Chris Paul having that extra, assuming Chris Paul is still here. You want Chris Paul as healthy and rested as possible. You want to have you want to be 6 or higher, and then ideally you figure out a way to get home court advantage of the first round. I don't know that you're catching Denver or Memphis, but stay out of that play-in round.
Mike, I don't look at the Western Conference this year, and I don't see a clear-cut winner other than Denver. You can put Denver to the side and say they're the most complete team in the Western Conference.
Agreed. And
they are, if they get home field advantage, they're going to almost assuredly be a lock to get to the Western Conference Finals.
What about Dallas now?
No.
Well, I think
if they can make that work, because you got 2 ball dominant players there, how's that going to work?
So I was listening to Draymond Green, and a guy that is as polarizing as Draymond, but Draymond at times is really insightful, Mike. He says some things that really gives you insight and a different perspective, and he talked about how that is a nightmare for them, for the Golden State Warriors in particular, because these are 2 guys that can create their own shots. They're 2 guys that don't necessarily have to rely on other guys to get themselves going. They're self-motivated. If you've got one guy in Luka, you can just let him go crazy, and eventually he's going to wear down, which he's done the last 2-3 years as far as the postseason is concerned. He gets you to a point, but Mike, he runs out of gas. Now you've got a guy that in Kyrie Irving, who had his issues with the Brooklyn Nets and had some things to say about the Brooklyn Nets on his way out the door. He gives Luka the opportunity to go to the bench and rest, and not lose any kind of offensive cohesion that has been built up during the course of said game.
I heard somebody from Dallas, breaking this thing down, and they said this trade was more about Luka than it was Kyrie.
I agree with that. It should be.
They want to test Luka. Like
Yeah.
whether or not Kyrie's here long term or not, that can be dealt with.
Right.
How is Luka going to react to a player like Kyrie, in this case, actually Kyrie,
Yeah.
come in and test him, push him out of his comfort zone?
Right.
You are not the man. You're
Right.
sharing that responsibility. To your point, it's still Luka's team,
Of course.
but you've got a guy that can do everything you just said.
Yes.
And that's what they need because everybody realizes what the Mavericks are.
Yes.
And so is Luka willing to make that work?
Yes.
Which I thought was fascinating. Like you always think about you're bringing those pieces in to add to what you have.
That's right.
But they're bringing pieces in to test what they had, test their superstar, their young superstar.
And I love it because you don't want to stay complacent, Mike, because where they were going to be a team that could get to maybe the Western Conference semis, every now and again get to the final,
Right.
but you weren't going to be able – you never considered them a full threat to get to the NBA Finals because you knew it was so dependent
One-man
on
show.
one guy. And the thing about Luka is Luka kind of reminds me of a LeBron James as far as his style of play.
Mm-hmm.
He's ball dominant. He likes to have the ball till you get to the end of the shot clock. Then he's going to make the correct basketball play. But as a teammate, you're going to have to be ready to catch and shoot or get to the rim.
Yeah.
You talk about a Kyrie Irving. Where did Kyrie have his most success? Playing with the LeBron James.
Cleveland.
And I think Kyrie has understood through the trials of going to Boston and going to the Brooklyn Nets, understanding that, yeah, he's tried it other ways. It hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
You got to the finals back to back and had real shots of winning too when you had a guy like LeBron James as the dominant guy. So I think for him, if he's matured at all, and that's a big if, he should understand that this is probably the best case scenario for him to have a success or have a chance at winning a championship again. Because if it really is about winning championships and not just about getting the bag, then I think Kyrie is in a great situation where if he makes this thing work in Dallas, he can pretty much get that 4-year deal that he's been looking for wherever it is that he finally lands, whether it's Dallas, whether it's somewhere else. If he pulls this off and he helps this team make a run like they can, I think this will go a long way for Kyrie.
Speaking of Kyrie trade, Chris Paul apparently was floated as part of a package to the Nets to bring Kyrie here. How obviously didn't happen, didn't materialize.
No.
Is Chris Paul, if you're James Jones right now, if you're sitting in his office downtown Phoenix working the phones, is Chris Paul expendable right now?
Mike, if you're going to be honest, and
I hate the word expendable. That probably wasn't the right word.
if he's
Tradable.
movable.
Tradable, movable.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chris Paul will always be a great player in the NBA. His legacy, I think, is cemented. I don't think he can do anything to damage his legacy at this point. But if we're honest and we think about the last couple of years, even the year they got to the finals, Chris is not dependable when it matters most.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in Houston when he played for my Rockets. That's been wherever he's gone, he has almost a shelf life, Mike, where he is really good during the regular season and they do a great job of trying to manage his minutes. He's not a guy that's going to miss games, but he's going to try to finesse the amount of minutes that he plays in each game and without having to just flat out not suit out. So I don't know how you do that, Mike, and keep the cohesion that you have with that starting unit, because if he's not going to be available and if he breaks down, which inevitably he's done in recent history, Mike, it's a young man's game. All these sports are for young men. Yep. When you're older and you're trying to hang on and get those last couple checks and, prolong your career, there's going to be things that get exposed. And I think for Chris Paul, his endurance level and his size gets exposed at the end of the season. When you start playing slow down basketball and then it becomes about possession basketball and height matters, I think for Chris, he has that ceiling. And it's unfortunate because he's really, really fun to watch, and he's been a great, great competitor his entire career.
Yeah, when you're talking about playing a team 6 times in a 10-day stretch.
And they know you. They can lock in on you.
To your point, it slows down. It gets physical. They lock in. Yeah, you can see where that, and it doesn't get better with age, whatever the issue is.
It does not.
Word out of the arena downtown is that DeAndre Ayton is not happy with the fact that we have chosen not to give him or utilize his nickname. Is he just showing off for the new owner, or is this DeAndre Ayton turning a page? You look just in the month of February, 26 and 12.5, back-to-back 30-point games.
I don't know, Mike. I don't know.
What do we need to see it on a sustained basis? I mean,
well, he's got the bag, so I mean, ideally, you would like to see him go out and do it, Mike. But he's a weird cat. He's just a weird cat.
Is he tradable?
I don't think that contract is. I think if he had a team friendly deal, I think they would trade him in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
But the money that the Jazz, I believe it was, that offered him, or Indiana that they offered, I think when they matched that, I think they knew that it was like, okay, we got to do this, but we know
hold their nose and do it,
because now we're stuck with him.
Yeah.
Once we do this, once we pull this trigger and give him this money, he's ours, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Well, you got him. Maybe he's just showing off for the new owner. Who knows?
Hey, show off for your teammates. How about that? I mean, the owner, he's going to be okay. Like, he's not going to miss any meals. He's going to be just fine. He just bought a team for $4 billion. He's going to be okay, right? When you just say it, $4 Billy, right? He's going to be okay. He's not going to lose a whole lot of sleep on the day in and day out and game in and game out of the Phoenix Suns. But for DeAndre Ayton, you've got a finite time to be a player, a finite time to make a difference, and your teammates are counting on you to be that big figure. If you always want to be included in the leaders of this team, then show up and be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't disappear.
Don't tell me.
Don't tell me. Show me. We're from Missouri, Mike. When we get to DeAndre Ayton,
What we'll see.
Show me.
Trade deadline right around the corner, and new owner in place.
Yeah.
I think from that standpoint, whatever happens here near term, the cast has been set, because this you're not going to change things in a day.
No, you can't.
But I think for the franchise to have the Robert Sarver cloud gone, I think that's going to matter, and long term that's going to matter. I think that's
Absolutely.
a good thing, because the more things that come out, I can't remember his name, the team president, who said that he would never leave.
Jason Rowley
gone too.
Yeah.
When you're the right hand man of the guy that got in trouble. I hate to use the term guilt by association, but guilt by association.
Yeah.
Right? You either knew, you condoned, whatever. All right, we'll step aside. You're listening to Train and Grose. Kind of cool. We're on the road.
Yeah.
We're Bosa Donut up. I don't even know what that means.
There's still some left.
There's still some.
There's like 3 apple fritters and a red velvet there.
Those are so good.
Be careful with the red velvet.
We'll be right back on Train and Grose.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Train and Grose, and that music means just one thing. It's people's favorite part of the podcast, where we get into Pump the Brakes, and then we'll wrap things up with dad jokes.
Yeah.
So we turn it over to the one, the only, Sean Crest.
All right, so if you look at my notes today that the crack staff sent me, it's just a bunch. I mean, I don't even know how to phrase these, so I might stumble all over it. One of them I had planned, but it was low-hanging fruit, so I should have known it was going to come up in their show in natural conversation. But LeBron James overachieving from the Sports Illustrated cover until now, which we all agree he did. So I'm going to change it up a little bit. You guys watched the game last night, right?
I did.
Did you see what he was doing in pregame? What he was practicing in pregame?
The skyhook.
The skyhook?
Did it from 3-point.
Pump the brakes or not, when he was one shot away, LeBron should have attempted at least one skyhook.
I'm going to pump the brakes. I think for him, it was poetic, because he hit the same shot that he hit for his very first shot.
The fadeaway?
He hit a fadeaway. And I think for LeBron, his game has come full circle to where a guy that used to come off screens and get himself in position to make plays at the basket, because he wasn't a great shooter, right? A guy that was able to just use his athleticism and get that shot. I thought it was apropos for the shot that actually gave him the scoring title.
I thought it was cool before the game. They were talking about it, but I think at some point there's a fine line between cool and
cheesy,
corny,
or I was going to say gimmicky.
Yeah.
And
the skyhook would have been a little.
I think it would have been a little over the top, and I don't even know. I don't think Kareem would have appreciated. Like pregame, sure, I get it.
I don't think Kareem appreciated it anyway.
No, probably
none of it. Handing him the ball.
I don't think he appreciated any of it.
And did you see his kid? Sorry to cut you out. When they panned to LeBron's kid,
yeah,
and dude was yawning at one point.
Yeah.
He's one shot away.
Yeah.
One shot away from breaking the record. And they
Absolutely.
pan to his kid, and his kid starts yawning. I'm like, oh, my God. What a terrible shot.
But you know, the thing about it is you got to wonder how much sleep has any of that family
It was like
gotten?
10 o'clock at night, too.
Right. How
Yeah.
much sleep have they gotten in the last week? Because
Right.
this has been something looming for quite some time.
Yeah.
And you knew it was coming. And
I mean, you can't help when you yawn. It was just funny that's when they panned
Perfect
to
timing.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
panned to the kid, and the kid
I mean,
yawned.
high school
Yeah.
kids naturally. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of yawning going on, and So
and win the damn game, Lakers.
So
Come on.
you're pumping the brakes on it too, then?
yeah, absolutely.
Every year during Super Bowl week, Roger Goodell has his State of the Union address.
Yep.
Okay, today officiating was brought up. Let me read you a quote. Quote, there are over 42,000 plays in a season. Multiple infractions could occur on any play. Take that out of, or extrapolate that. That's hundreds, if not millions, of potential fouls. And our officials do an extraordinary job of getting those. Are there mistakes in the context of that? Yes, there are not. They are not perfect, and officiating never will be. But he went on to say, officiating in the NFL has never been better. Pump the brakes or not on that last line.
I'm going to tap the brakes.
Okay.
Because I think the one thing that we've seen consistently throughout the last 20 years is there's been more opposition to the calls. I think with the advancement of technology, you see more. You get to see more in the replays, and when you see more, and the fans are actually smarter now than what they were. Not to say that fans back in the day weren't smart, but you have so much more information now, and you can see things happen a lot faster now with the high definition TVs and the replays that they show you over and over and over and over and over again. I just think for the referees, we've talked about this in previous podcasts, we got to get some young bloods in there.
Yeah.
It's hard for a 60-something-year-old man to see 20-something-year-olds move at the speed of light.
Absolutely.
And catch everything. Your eyes just can't. You can't.
No.
Like, you're given a certain amount of field to work with. I get that, but those guys are going 100 miles an hour every single play, Mike. And to think that you're going to be able to see every infraction that occurred, that's just unrealistic.
Absolutely. I'm not pumping the brakes. Like,
I agree.
yeah. I mean, but he can be right and he can be wrong at the same time, because fans don't want to hear that.
Right.
The answer to that is, you know what, we always strive to be better. To your point, maybe we look at the how we hire, where we hire, all of it. And I think in the previous podcast we were talking about it, I said hire full-time officials, have a campus somewhere, wherever you want to have it, where they live and work and they train and they watch film.
But a part of me wonders if that would even help.
It would help at the margin, to be Train's point.
Here's why, though, because it's an ever-changing playbook, and I think that's a good thing for the NFL. I think you should always be trying to improve. But with that ever-growing rule book, right? With that ever-growing rule book, there's more and more subjective calls. It used to be pass interference was a referee's discretion.
Yeah.
Right? Now, roughing the passer, discretion. Pass interference, discretion. Holding's always been discretion. Unsportsmanlike, taunting, what isn't. Targeting. All of those are discretionary, where it used to be there was a couple, but now there's so many of them that what you see and what you see and what I see might be completely different.
100%, I get that.
And I think so. The officials, in my opinion, are just in a rough spot.
They're in a rough spot, and it's a hard job. To your point, the technology, the replay, the high def, the super slow-mo. But if they, instead of coming back to be a gym teacher, an attorney, or whatever they are, put them in the NFL officiating headquarters 6 days or 6 days a week during season, off season, you're watching film. What do players do? Players watch film.
Absolutely.
If I'm an attorney, I ain't watching film.
Let me ask you this, though. As a man who was in between those white lines for your entire life, how different does it? Because I know in the small, not even remotely close to speed of NFL football that I was around, in between the lines and then going back and watching film looks completely different. And in the NFL, when you're on the field seeing something real time and then taking the step back and you get the all 22, it is completely different.
It is.
How do you replicate that for officials You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no matter how much film you watch,
it's the same thing with players, though.
It's a completely different experience.
So a couple things. One, yes, you don't have end zone copy on the field real time. That's a great vision. That's a great camera angle to be able to break down film and all those kind of things. I firmly believe, one, they should have younger refs, but I also believe that there should be an internship. I think if you're going to become an NFL rep, let that guy, him or her, be a intern for a year. Follow a group around, a staff around, and they're just the ones that are observing. They observe the different refs. They watch a different ref per quarter. Let them see how that game plays out, and they can kind of grade them out based on what they're supposed to be looking for, so they can have an idea of what the referees are being graded on actually. Sure. So make it like a real major, almost like a major at a university.
Yeah.
Where you are, okay, my first year, I'm not going to be in charge of any game. I'm not going to go out there and referee any game. I'm just going to sit and observe and watch how these referees go about the business of making these game-altering decisions each and every time they throw that yellow flag.
On the 3 teams you played for, the different coaching staffs, how often did they bring in officials during training camp, practice, and such to throw flags during could that be an option where you have that, you make that something where your internship is, you go to say team and throughout the week you're throwing
but
flags.
I think you need a year because you've got to adjust your eyes. Just like we talked about, different position players have to adjust their eyes. I think referees have to adjust their eyes to ask them to go out there from not being a ref to now having to ref games that actually matter, where jobs are on the line and they play for keeps. When you talk about the score, I think you don't want to push those guys out there too fast before they have a great concept of what it is that they're supposed to be looking for.
And I just think we all need to remember, do you remember the strike year for the officials? You remember how those first couple weeks went, culminating with the Monday Night Football
and why they brought the real refs
not
back.
Touchdown? They do a tremendous job.
Yeah, why they brought So going back to your original,
they do a tremendous job.
So going back to the original question,
it's a hard job.
It is.
He's not wrong.
Right.
He is not
He's
wrong.
Right, yeah.
But
it's
he
the way
is
he
wrong
said it.
the way he said it.
Yeah.
Like we always strive to be better.
Yeah.
We can be better. We will be better. We'll work. Whatever.
Yeah.
Fine. You're done.
Somebody else who said something that I'm going to read you another quote. This is from Christian McCaffrey, who's done a couple of hits here, Media Day and Radio Row and everything else.
Grew up in the game. Dad was a 3-time Super Bowl champion.
He's talking about the NFC Championship game in this.
Okay.
He says, quote, "You don't want to make excuses, but it just sucks because we wish we had a healthy quarterback for a full game and just kind of see how the game would have panned out. It's a really good team that we played, but it feels like something got stolen from us.
No.
Just wish it would have played out differently." Pump the brakes or not, A, on that statement there. Is that a fair statement from the player?
The brakes.
And then 2, you guys remember, during your playing years, you could dress a third emergency quarterback. They scrapped that rule in 2011. So the second portion of this question for Pump the Brakes is they need to implement that rule back immediately, at least for postseason at worst.
Well, the teams still have the options of dressing a
carrying
third,
3,
but they want that roster spot for somebody else.
Right.
With all of the injuries that happen throughout the course of a season, because you have more games to play, you got more chances to get injured. So yeah, you're going to want to give that roster or that roster spot for the game to a position player, maybe an offensive lineman, because we know if you don't have offensive linemen, you have no chance. You can just ask Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know how you really truly fix that. I think for Christian McCaffrey, it would have been cool for him to have just said, "I wish we would have been healthy," and left it there.
Leave it there.
Because the more you say, the more sour grapes you sound.
It feels like something got stolen from us. That line.
Nobody
there,
stole
like,
anything.
No.
They stole your heart.
Yeah.
And what they did was they did what everybody talks about. In order to kill the snake, you got to chop off the head.
And Hassan
they
Reddick,
chopped off
he
the
did
head.
just that.
He did just that. And then Ndamukong Suh did the same thing to the backup.
Yeah.
So they had, and they weren't dirty plays, but they had an intention of hitting the quarterback and hitting him hard.
And I got, sorry to cut you off. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you finish
And
before I
that,
make
you
my
talk about
my
that
point.
all the time. When you played, like that's what the goal was.
You got to
like,
feel me.
You got
You gotta feel me.
I 100% agree. Like
So you're pumping the
same
brakes on the
thing,
statement?
Same thing of what I said about Roger Goodell. He's not wrong, but you don't sound right when you say it that way. You lost.
Sour grapes.
They won. Move on.
They beat
Move
you.
on.
They beat you
Like,
soundly. Nothing. No flag. There was no
No.
review of the plays
Yeah.
where it was something malicious. Look, it's unfortunate. but you were already playing with your third string quarterback because your first two had already gotten hurt.
Yeah, and answer this for me. How many third string quarterbacks? So because that's who it would be if you had this extra roster spot to sit an emergency quarterback. How many third string quarterbacks were beating that Eagles defense in Philadelphia?
I don't know that
during
the
the
first
NFC
string was gonna
Championship
do
game.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, it goes back to drafting for your needs, for your system, what fits for your system. San Francisco somehow miraculously had a Brock Purdy on the roster, a guy that was Mr. Irrelevant, but he was a guy that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch saw, a guy that had played 4 years at Iowa State, a guy that was a winner and a leader, and he translated very well into his first year. They didn't anticipate him being needed, but the fact is he came through in a tough spot, and ultimately when he went down, so did their chances of going to the Super Bowl.
But if you re-implement that rule that went out in 2011 that you get an extra roster spot for a quarterback to dress, an emergency quarterback.
No.
Not a lot of guys that are going to fill that roster spot are going to go win that NFC Championship.
Don't let those guys off the hook because those teams still have the option to do it. They just choose not to.
It's true. Very true. Next one is about the game coming up on Sunday, but not necessarily, just the Super Bowl in general.
Okay.
Pump the brakes or not. There's a list and you guys know I love my list. NFL.com put out a list ranking the Super Bowls. Number 1, Patriots over the Seahawks, the interception at the goal line. Pump the brakes or not, that Super Bowl
of all time?
Super Bowl 49 was the best Super Bowl in history.
Of all time?
Of all
Pump
time.
the brakes.
What comes to mind above that?
Okay, I'll go Dallas, Pittsburgh.
That was actually number 1 on another list that I looked at. Was Dallas? You're talking about the Dallas-Pittsburgh dropped touchdown in the end zone, the whole thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you had two great teams going at it. The overtime game, I think the Patriots and the Falcons was a better, that was the best Patriots Super Bowl. I thought that was better than the Philly Patriots Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Or you could go with Kurt Warner. I mean, it's funny because every one that they lost have been great games.
Yeah.
Go back to the Philadelphia one in 2018, 2017. Tom Brady threw for over 500 yards, and they didn't punt and lost.
And now I was supposed to put a disclaimer in here that we were excluding all of the Super Bowls the three of us combined to have played in. So we were putting that the disclaimer out there. But no, I agree.
Ours was good. I mean, there was a lot of drama back and forth.
There's a lot of moments.
Yeah, a lot of moments and a lot of moments that will live on forever. But there were better games.
Mm-hmm. What about the one here, the catch? Wasn't that
the Giants and Patriots?
Giants, yeah. That was Giants and Patriots as well.
The undefeated team,
the
Tyreek,
yeah. I mean, partial to here. There's been some great games in this stadium.
That stadium is I mean, that's also
they're 2 for 2.
Yeah, the site of the Patriots Seahawks interception, the one that this list has number 1 was there. The helmet catch, was another one.
But I'm partial too. I because we knew we'd be doing this podcast talking about it. Mm-hmm. The game in Tampa, you guys.
It's a great game. But it wasn't the best. I mean, even as a guy who played,
it's close.
It's up there. I mean, it was a great game, lots of theater, lots of drama, but there have been other games that have been really, really good.
You know how you love your list.
San Fran, Cincinnati, where
Joe Montana.
Hey, that's John Candy.
Yeah, what a moment! You walk in, you see wide eyes, and everybody kind of
that game was at the old Silverdome.
Yeah,
way back, and it doesn't exist
Jerry
anymore.
Rice had like 215 yards that game.
I love being
215.
I love being from Detroit. Super Bowls do not need to be in cities named Detroit, Minneapolis, New York.
Outdoors. The hell were they doing?
I mean, you can even on in recent history, even Miami with the rain and everything.
It didn't go back since the rain. If you notice that, they haven't brought it back since the rain.
If I was in charge of the NFL,
who was that? Chicago, Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm. If I was in charge of the NFL,
yeah,
I would build a stadium. The NFL would build a stadium in San Diego. And every other year, the Super Bowl would be there in San Diego.
Every year, be there.
All right, every year.
You had the Pro Bowl every year in Hawaii. Nobody complained about that.
The Super Bowl should be in San Diego.
I don't have this on the list, but did you guys happen to catch any of the flag?
No.
Pro
Didn't turn
Bowl,
it on. Nothing.
Any of it?
None of it.
They needed Josh Jacobs came out and said, this shit's terrible. The whole week, because he was part of the dodgeball and everything else. They need to just move it back to Hawaii.
Do what you said, B-Train.
Make an awards banquet out there.
You're all pros.
Right.
Have the banquet, have a party, let you bring your families.
The whole NFL Honors TV show that they do this week, do it out there.
And announce the Hall of Fame.
And do it after,
all of it.
And do it after the Super Bowl again. so everybody can be there.
And if you need to
Student
do
athletes.
something, have an NFL golf tournament. Right. The guys that play golf, let them play golf.
And do that quarterback competition if
No,
you
don't
want
even
to.
do that.
That
Just-
used to be great. I used to love that.
Well, back in the day, I think we talked about this. The '70s. You guys are too young probably to remember the superstars.
I remember.
Bring them. Run some.
They run the 40.
Some relays and some. Throw some frisbee.
Wide
whatever.
world of sports. They be on
do
ABC.
whatever.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I DVR'd all of it. And I fast forwarded through it. So I did.
You are one
I got
pathetic
issues.
loser.
I got issues.
Wow.
Last one. Pump the brakes or not. The must-have at your Super Bowl viewing experience, wherever it is a solid chip and dip. That's number one.
Easy.
Has to happen.
Not pumping the brakes.
So not pumping the brakes.
No brake pump.
A lot of people go the wings and the the pizzas. No, you got to have a chip
Chips
and
are
a
the
chip, a chip and a
it's
dip.
the easiest food to eat and,
kind of
and
dip?
keep it moving. For me, it's got to be guac.
Boom. I make a solid black bean guacamole salsa.
I'm going hamburger cheese.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna do that.
I
Sunday.
don't do cheese, so but I mean, look.
If
Mike,
you were coming over, I'd give you the guac.
but the guac, man, it's such a universal. It's universally accepted as the dip. Like, think about Chipotle. Chipotle made a whole chain off of guacamole.
Yeah, that's extra.
Right?
Just so you know.
It is extra, but I mean, people are willing to pay for
Yeah,
it. That's how
absolutely.
much of
That's
it.
why I
didn't know
was
if you
cracking
meant-
the joke.
I didn't know if you meant it was extra. Or
No.
if it was
No. Whenever you order it, the lady behind the counter or the guy behind the counter always make sure to tell you this is extra.
Yeah.
I know. You go ahead.
Yeah, so is the Nantucket extra, but I want that too. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Are we looking forward to Rihanna?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I look forward to the. I look forward to the.
I look
halftime
forward to the
regardless.
under 40 performers.
Yeah.
Don't give me the 60-year-old old guys. Like, don't do it.
I'm looking forward to the combination of Rihanna,
You know she's gonna have some.
You know
special
she's
guests.
gonna bring it.
Of course she is.
but I'm looking forward to Rihanna. But then to your point about, I'm looking forward to the people on social media ripping Rihanna no matter what she does, because why not Metallica?
It's ridiculous. No, and
Give me Metallica.
they can't do anything right at halftime. Like,
Yeah.
if
Or
people
The
can
Who.
rip. Yeah. People are rip on it.
Or
no matter
Paul
what.
McCartney. I don't want to see Paul McCartney. I mean, like I feel like he was propped up there, like like he was playing like he was gonna fall over at any moment.
Give me Willie Nelson.
Oh God, no, please, no.
It's so predictable, the
I
reaction.
wouldn't mind being with him afterwards because I know the celebration
gonna be right.
party is going to be off. It's going to be
You're
lit.
right.
Literally.
I'm going to be in that party bus afterwards.
He's jumping the gun on where we're headed next.
I think
year.
that's
what a great
two
segue!
already.
What a great segue that was.
I think that's two.
We can't get out of here from the Talking Stick Resort Studios without the dad joke of the week. You know how this works. There's a grading system with this particular segment. No matter what, you're going to get one of these. If it's a quality dad joke, you're going to hear the laughter. If it's above and beyond, you get the standing ovation. Grose likes to call it the clap. But there is the chance. There's that chance that it just doesn't land, and you get one of these in the grading system. All right. So B-Train,
Ain't getting that.
lay it on us today.
All right, here we go, fellas. What's made of leather and sounds like a sneeze?
A leather, and it sounds like a sneeze.
What's made of leather
Okay.
and sounds like a sneeze?
What is it?
A shoe.
It's just the right amount of dumb. I love it.
And that's the second week in a row. This is
Oh, that's good.
it's suitable for all audiences.
Oh, I love it.
We don't have to give the warning.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I use
It's all good.
the can I take it home to the school
You can
principal?
take that home to
and
the
she
school
can do it
principal.
on the morning
She can do it
announcements.
on the morning
That's a
announcements.
good one.
Yeah,
A
Karen.
shoe.
Shout out to Karen. She
Get
can
it?
do
A
that.
shoe. A shoe.
I get it because it's a shoe made of leather.
It just beats you too, because
Yeah.
usually you sit next to me, but now that
Yeah.
we're on the road, we got a different setup here, so I can play the part of Sean Cressman.
But see, I got the real time laughs though, so that's even
good.
better. That's even
Yeah.
better than the sound
On the
of it.
button.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to the good folks out here at Bellbank Park, Talking Stick Resort Studio. It's been a blast
Yeah.
coming out here. I got to get the map out, figure out how to get home.
Gotta get back to the west side.
Got to get back to Central
Well,
Phoenix.
thanks for driving out here to our side.
No,
today,
it's
man.
fun.
Helped out.
B-Train, thanks for bringing a Bosa.
Get another one. I'm not taking all those back with me.
Don't forget, follow us on Twitter at Train and Gross. We'll see you next time for episode 97. of
We'll
Train and
holla.
Gross.